Okay, here we go again. We're still on emotions, emotion regulation. And now we're moving on to, from the teaching of the model of emotions, on to how do you change an emotion when it's in you, when you're going through an emotion, but you're caught up in it. You have a lot of it. It's intense. It's inhibiting you. It's blocking you from something. How do you change an emotion right then and there? And so this section's on that. So let me tell you a little story to introduce this. A man or woman gets stuck driving in the middle of the night in the woods. His car breaks down. Nobody's around for miles. He opens the hood and has enough savvy to realize if he had a wrench, he thinks he could fix the engine. Don't ask me what it would be because I don't know much about engines. And so he starts walking through the woods hoping there's somebody there, some house, something that he'll come to. And after an hour, he finally sees a light ahead through the woods. And he keeps walking that way. And as he gets closer, he realizes it looks like it's a little house. Somebody lives there. Then he sees a little road. Someone's at this house. It's kind of isolated, but there's someone there. And as he goes along, at first he's rather hopeful. Oh, good. Maybe I can get this wrench and go back and fix my car. It's completely dark out, and it's the middle of the night. And as he gets closer, he starts thinking, oh, God, I'm going to wake somebody up. I'm going to wake someone up in the middle of the night who doesn't expect anyone in the middle of the woods. And I'm going to ask him for a wrench, and that's not going to seem like a very good reason, so this person's going to be kind of pissed off at me. He walks a little closer. As he gets closer, he's thinking this more and more, like, oh, God, this person's going to come, and I'm going to wake them up, and then I'm going to ask them for this, and then that's not going to work, and he's not going to have a wrench, or he has a wrench, but he's pissed off that, oh, my God, and I'm getting more and more upset. This man or woman is getting more and more upset as you get closer to the house. You get finally to the house and you knock on the door, and somebody finally comes in their pajamas, opens the door, and then the person says to that person in the pajamas, well, screw you, I don't need your wrench anyway, and walks away. All right, what happened? Well, the person's anger, clearly angry at the person in the pajamas. Is their anger justified by the facts of the situation? Do we know if that person's going to be rejecting or mean? No. Do we know anything about that person? No. So to be angry at that person is probably not justified by the facts. And it's not very effective in that situation in getting your problem solved. So what did happen? Well, the person started to have thoughts about the likelihood of what would happen, which is that this person's going to be mean to me. And therefore, if that was true, when you're in need, maybe it's understandable to be angry, but it isn't. So this is a problem, and let's say you stay angry at this person who actually never did anything to you, then you may not want to stick with that because it may be blocking you from having the life you want to have in some form, all right? Another example, let's say I came to work this morning and I parked my car and I'm walking here and I stop at the pharmacy and I go to the counter and I say, hey, could you tell me where the cough syrup is? And the person said, why are you asking me for cough syrup? And my reaction might be to feel very guilty because I've been yelled at. And so I might walk out and feel, oh my God, I'm such a bad person, right? Now, is that emotion justified by the situation? Well, one could understand that I'd feel guilty, especially if I had a history of being yelled at by people and made to feel guilty about things. But actually, have I done anything wrong by asking for cough syrup in a pharmacy? No. So the guilt is not justified by the facts. But let's say in response to the anger, I got angry back. Would that be justified by the facts? That might be justified by the facts because the facts are I came appropriately asked I just want some cough syrup, and this person is acting like there's something wrong with me and yells at me. So that would be understandable if I was hurt or angry, right? So that's what this little section of teaching is all about, is that sometimes we get stuck with emotions that are not justified by the situation. And that calls for one certain kind of solution. Other times we get angry, or other times we have an emotion that is in keeping with the situation or that is effective to have. And that leads to different solution. Okay? So that really is the beginning of this. Now, handout number 7. Handout number 7, which is not starred. You don't really need to use it, but you've got to get this idea, and this is a big idea, which is that you start out when you're stuck with an emotion that you'd like to change. You start out by checking the facts, which is to ask yourself and to check out if there's a way to check it. Are my emotions, do they fit with the objective facts and the situation? Or are they effective? Is it an effective emotion to have? Or does it not fit? Or it's not effective? If it doesn't fit, if it isn't justified, what we're going to talk about is using opposite action to try to change the emotion. I'll tell you what that is in a minute. If it does fit, we're going to use problem solving. For instance, I'll give you an example that Marsha Linehan often gives when she has taught. One day you go to the room at the end of the hall in your house. You wanted to go there and watch television. You open the door, and lo and behold, there's a man-eating tiger in the room. And it roars at you, and you close the door and run away. You have fear. Now, would you say the fear is justified by the facts? I think you'd have to say it is. Of course it's justified by the facts, because the facts are that you could be eaten in there or damaged, right? So that's fear that's understandable. But let's say now you've alerted the authorities, and the authorities have come and taken the tiger out of there and taken it to the zoo where it began. Now there's no animal in there. 2 days later, you go down to the end of the hall and you want to go in that room, but you're afraid because there was a tiger in there. So you don't go in, and you just feel your fear going up as you go towards the room. Is your fear justified by the facts? Well, actually not. It's justified by what was the fact, and it's justified by how you are thinking what it was before, but it's not justified by the actual facts, right? There's nothing in there to hurt you, and yet you're afraid. And if you don't check it out, you might not find out that there's nothing in there that would hurt you. So that would be an example of how, if you checked the facts and found out there's no tiger in there, then let's start with the other one. If the tiger's in there and your feelings do fit the facts, then problem solving is the way to go. And problem solving was what you did to get the tiger out of there, right? But if the tiger's not there, now it doesn't fit the facts, now you go with opposite action. An opposite action is that whatever that urge was, the urge to run away, you go opposite. You go opposite the urge that goes with that emotion. You go check it out. You approach it. However safely you want to do that, you figure out. You approach that room and find out there's nothing in there that would hurt you, and then your fear goes down. Either way, your fear goes down, but it depends. I mean, if you don't want to do opposite action if the fear is justified. See what I mean? And you don't want to problem solve. There's nothing to problem solve if there's nothing in there, right? Okay. You get the basic idea. Now, let's start with check the facts. There's a nice handout here on check the facts, handout number 8, right? And it goes over that what we're talking about is a 3 steps that we're looking at about how our emotion comes from an event, but it also comes from our interpretation or thought about the event. And we want to check out the facts of whether the event justifies the emotions or whether the event does not justify the emotions, right? So, by the way, you know, you can see the second part here where sometimes an event leads immediately to an emotion and then some subsequent thoughts. Now you're stuck with both the thoughts and the events, and they reinforce each other, the thought and the emotion, And so still this can be used, whether you started out with the thoughts or whether you started out with the emotions. Now, how to check the facts, and Linehan goes over a series of questions that you ask. And let's apply it to one of these. Let's apply it to the tiger where you're actually afraid. So the first step is, what is the emotion I want to change? Well, it'd be fear. Ask second, what's the event prompting my emotion? I saw a man-eating tiger in the TV room. What are my interpretations, thoughts, and assumptions about the event? My assumptions are that I could be eaten in there. It's a dangerous situation. Am I assuming a threat? Yes. Yes, I am assuming a threat. What's the catastrophe? Well, it would be that I'd be killed and eaten. And last, does my emotion or its intensity fit the actual facts? And the answer would be yes there. But if you went through all the same 6 questions, when there's not anything dangerous in there, you're going to come out with different answers. What's the emotion I want to change? Fear. What's the event prompting my emotion? I saw a tiger in the room a few days ago. What are my interpretations, thoughts, and assumptions about the event? Well, that the tiger might still be in there. Am I assuming a threat? I guess I am assuming a threat. But maybe I need to check that. What's the catastrophe? I could be eaten. Now, last question. Does my emotion and or its intensity fit the actual facts? And if you check that out, you'd find out no. All right? So that you use check the facts, and you have a lot of chances to practice. Here's examples of emotions that fit the facts. So there's various examples. You want to use examples from people in your group. Once they get this idea, you want to get them clear enough so that they can generate their own examples and get one from each person. Now, handout number 9 shows the kind of algorithm of how this works, which is, how do you decide which to use, opposite action or problem solving? And this very complicated thing is complicated just to look at it like this, but actually, if you go through it with examples, it sort of becomes clearer what it is. And you don't need this when you're actually in real life, but this is an instructive approach to look through this, because you first ask this question, does the emotion fit the facts? And it's either yes or no, or maybe, I guess. You try to find out the answer to that. And then if it's yes, it does fit the facts, then you ask yourself, like let's say about the fear of the tiger, is acting on this emotion effective? And I'd say yes. If you act on fear, you get away from the tiger. So if it's yes, then you want to be mindful of your current emotions, and you want to act on your emotion or urge because it's reliable, it fits the facts. And then you want to problem solve any unwanted emotions to do anything you can do, and that might be to do all the steps to get rid of the tiger, for instance. And if you ask the question, does this emotion fit the facts? Yes, it does. There's a tiger in there. And then ask, is acting on this emotion effective? And if you were to say no, it's not effective. Can't think of why that wouldn't be effective. I'm sorry, that's not a great example. But the idea is you ask 2 questions. The most important one usually is does it fit the facts? And second, does it effective? You basically want to decide whether to go against the emotion or whether to go with the emotion. That's the basic idea here. And if you want to go with the emotion, then you want to act on the urge, or you want to problem solve if you can't get it to go away, or if it's just too intense, you want to problem solve, right? Okay, we're going to have to stop here and come back.